This time on Gamers Week podcast.
So I've always thought that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson looked like Mr. Dream for Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. So I'm going to go a Mike Tyson's Punch-Out Rocky style movie.
Ryan Reynolds is Little Mac.
I love it.
Oh, God, that would be great.
Oh, my gosh.
And if, whenever whoever plays Mac or whatever, if he gets knocked down and he's trying to make his way back to the to his corner, your trainer is saying, join the Nintendo Fun Club today. And the guy looking up at him is like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. He was actually trying to give him real advice, but he's so punch drunk that's what he heard.
I think I'm going to have Night Trap in my head for the rest of my days.
Yes.
It's constantly there. Love is easy by the night of day.
Night Trap. Night Trap. It's a deceptively catchy song.
Welcome to Gamers Week podcast. Like the name says, we analyze the best, worst, and weirdest headlines of the past week in the video game industry. This is episode 6. Today is Wednesday, January 26th, 2022. My name is Donnie G. Retro, and I'll be your host this evening. Along with two of my favorite co-hosts ever and friends, we have Blue, a.k.a. Riders View, a.k.a. the Mario Kart Madness. Blue, how you doing?
I like that one. I'm going to get that on a shirt.
How did you do in your recent Mario Kart tournament?
Not great. Not great at all.
All right.
All right.
With us as well, we have Mr. Retro Game Brews, a.k.a. Ryebread, a.k.a. he's never going to dance again because the Bills lost.
Oh.
I don't feel like I have to say hello. I don't want to talk to you right now. So.
We'll touch on that subject here in a little bit, but we also have a special guest with us this evening, someone you might know who wants all of the Sneak Kings, every single copy. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to introduce to you Mr. Leroy Patterson. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Hey, things are great. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. Glad to have you on. The second episode we discovered that you were trying to acquire all of these different Sneak Kings. But aside from the Sneak King, what else do you have going on right now?
A lot of fun things. So I'm a professional wrestler. I recently made my AEW debut, which is a crazy, crazy thing. I'm a reality show daredevil. I've been on America's Got Talent, Germany's Got Talent, Italy, France, The Gong Show, Wipeout, American Ninja Warrior, 20 plus shows. Also, at the time of this recording, tomorrow is my appearance on the Go Big Show. Which is on TBS, 7 p.m. It's a great show. Watch it, even if I'm not on it. I also worked in the video game industry for 10 years, mostly doing QA testing for THQ, EA, Neversoft, Square Enix, the list goes on. I make goofy TV pilots, and yes, the main reason is I have 2,816 copies of the Burger King video game Sneak King.
Wow.
That is something to put on your resume. Definitely.
I try to keep busy.
I was going to say, I think you have probably the coolest resume I've ever heard in my life. So
also, crap, I forgot. I'm also the senior video editor for Giphy, so I make GIFs for a living.
Oh, that is a dream job
too.
right there.
Yeah, I love it. Best job I've ever had. Hands down, easy.
Now, as far as like Wipeout is concerned, that is one of our favorite shows here in this house. Have you
Wipeout was so much fun.
Traversed across the big balls?
So, with the big balls, they did not give me a chance to like catch my breath at all. Because what they don't show you is that every time you get knocked down, you have to climb this ladder back up onto the set. And I was weighing 320 pounds at the time. And, I'm soaking wet and muddy and just gross and the most tired I've ever been in my life. So you get out, you finally climb the ladder and you're like, okay, quick breath. And then I'm going to run across these. And then you're nailed from behind and flipping I must have done 3 or 4 rotations before I hit the water. So I didn't even get a chance to run the balls because they were tired of me trying to breathe, and they wrecked me for it. The funniest thing about that show was people would leave to go, because I was the last person to go, so I got to see everyone like run to the set and then come back. And they left super peppy and happy and ready to do this, and they came back broken people who, like, one person refused to talk to anyone and just laid in the corner.
Just like sobbing.
Yeah, everyone was happy when they didn't get to go on to round 2.
It's like, yes, I don't have to endure this anymore. The gauntlet is over.
I get to go home now.
Give me my home game prize and I'll be fine.
Right, yeah. Give me my $60 for gas money, and then I'm leaving. Goodbye. Thanks for the memories.
Today's episode is proudly sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast, but we'll tell you more about them in a bit.
Yes, we have some very important business to attend to before we continue.
Yes.
So if you listened last week, you, of course, remember that we had a bet going between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs game. That was the divisional round of the NFL playoffs this past weekend. And it was an incredible nail-biter of a game with the lead changing hands many, many times. But in the end, the Chiefs did best the Bills in overtime with a score of 42-36. And that means that Ryan must now fulfill his end of the wager. Take it away, Ryan.
Well, of course, I have to sing I'm a Little Teapot. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sing half of the song. And then, unlike the NFL, I'm going to give Donnie an opportunity to possess the rest of the song.
I see what you're doing there, though that wasn't the bet.
Darn it. It might have worked. All right. So I apologize to all of our listeners' ears. This is going to sound awful, but here we go. Oh, I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle. Here is my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out. I'm a very special teapot. Yes, it's true. Here's an example of what I can do. I can turn my handle into a spout. Tip me over and pour me out. Yes. I hate you all.
And I
finished. With the second verse. Amazing.
Actually, I'm going to be honest. I had no idea there was a second verse.
Neither did I.
Oh, that's the worst. I could have gotten done.
I feel like you rushed it. I'm going to need you to go back and do it again. Do it more. Do some more.
Yeah, that was great. Can we get another take?
No. Absolutely
not. Okay.
I need to feel it. You need to prove it to me that you own this song.
Well, I'm glad to disappoint you then. So can we move on from this extremely painful experience?
Can we just savor the moment for a second?
Just soak it in,
Soak it in, right?
Marinate in it.
Breathe it. Okay, we can move on.
All right, so next up, we're going to take a look at our reviews, reactions, and requests. So we had a few additions here for this week. So first off, from Gaming Gains, great way to describe scalpers on this week's podcast, quote unquote, no added value. Terry Kinnear said, finally got around to listening to a few episodes of Gamers Week, and that was a lot of fun. Also, everyone missed the correct answer for the if you could only play one dinosaur game for the rest of your life question, which is clearly Virtual Bart.
That's a good game.
I think that's true. I don't recall anybody answering that.
Nope, not a single one.
Oh, thank you. I got to take off my Apple Watch now.
Place an order for Virtual Bart.
And then finally from Redox PDX, listening to this segment about streaming services. And by the way, we think you're going to like this one. I wanted to add weight to the discussion about accessibility. Here's the thing. I think typically this type of service makes games less accessible for families. My kids go to school with a blend of families, both culturally and income-based. And you'll see the rich kids typically own an Xbox, PS4, PC, or sometimes more than one. And then additionally, they own a Switch. But the kids with more modest family means who have Gen X or millennial generation parents, they're the ones who own Switch only and physical games. These families typically see video games as toys, not as something like Netflix. Marketing a streaming gaming service is uninteresting to them. It doesn't make sense when you see video games primarily as toys. So I think personally, these services will drive some of the market more of Nintendo's way.
I think this is a great comment. It is a perspective we definitely didn't consider last week.
Indeed.
I think that we lose our perspective a little bit because gaming is so embedded in our lives that it's weird to think that not everybody is like that there are still parents out there who think that no, gaming is just for kids and they're just toys. So this was really good for her to point out to us.
And also, Netflix is soon to have a streaming video game service, from what I understand as well.
Yes, but we will get to that later in the show.
Yeah. Oh, spoiler alert.
Yeah, I'll say Blue's on top of it.
Yep, I'm on it.
And now it's time for the very important poll. Every Monday on Twitter, we post our VIP, very important poll. If you'd like to participate, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC. And this week's question was, what is your favorite retro wrestling game? Now, I didn't state this as what is the best, because obviously that would be subjective. Mm-hmm. We'd have a 50-man battle royale with no clear winner.
I'd fight for mine.
I'd be right in there in the scrum, probably hitting myself in the face. So the answer to the question of what is your favorite retro wrestling game, we had a couple of different answers. The one with the most percentage of votes was WWF No Mercy for the Nintendo 64, coming in at 34.7% of the votes. Coming in second was Other. Great game. Loved it. Can't wait to talk about it.
It's always so very popular with these polls.
It does. I know. It doesn't matter what game, what genre. It's always there. Saturday Night Slam Masters came in at 22%, while WWF WrestleFest came in at 16%. Let's look at some of the answers from the other category. At St. Squiggy says, I played more when I was younger, but not so much now. But I liked WCW versus NWO. He says on SNES ? But it was actually on the Nintendo 64.
Correct.
Doing a rumble and hocking people out of the ring was hilarious. At A Beer and a Game says, WWF arcade game.
Mm-hmm.
At Burkow says WWF SmackDown for the PSX was legit. Like, too legit to quit.
Don't put words in Burkow's mouth. That's not what he said.
At Rockapocalypse says WWF WrestleMania Challenge. Was it the best wrestling game ever? Decidedly not. Did it matter to the 10-year-old who played and replayed it too many times to remember? Absolutely not in the slightest. Also, the chiptune rendition of Brutus Beefcake's entrance theme was ace.
Yes.
I don't really remember that one. That was on the NES, wasn't it?
As far as the WrestleMania Challenge, yep.
Okay.
They also released a handheld version that you can, like one of the RCA ones you plug into the TV.
Yep, you're right.
I got one of those too.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I've got 119 wrestling games. I freaking love wrestling games.
Dang.
There are some out there that are intense, and we'll get to those in a second.
Oh, yeah.
But the last one, Madman1NC says, pro wrestling where a winner is you.
Classic.
Very classic.
Love it. The Amazon.
We're going to start with you. And what was your pick for your favorite retro wrestling game? Crickets?
When you say you, who are you referring to?
Yeah, nobody heard who you were addressing.
Oh, I said blue.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you said you.
We're going to start with you. No, nobody wants to jump in.
That was for the people at home to be able to chip in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yell out your answer, kids.
Yeah, we gave them proper time. And
yeah. Okay, my favorite retro wrestling game is WWF WrestleMania 2000 on the N64. The reason it is my favorite is because our good friend Pez Guy Mike of the Horror at Home podcast, he runs streams where he gathers together podcasters and gives them avatars in WrestleMania 2000 and sets it so the computer does the fighting for them. And Ryan and I have both participated in the past, and it is hilarious. So yeah. Oh, and Donnie, that's right. Donnie,
I was the champion.
You're the reigning champion. That's right. I forgot. But he calls it the Twitch Wrestling Federation, and it's really, really fun.
I remember in particular, one time you were pretty much dead in the water.
I was. My bar was like all the way in the red. It was game over for me for sure.
And you bounced off the ropes and knocked someone out of the ring, and they got a ring out. So
yep.
Technicality.
Whatever. Sometimes you do a Hail Mary and it works.
I think the funnest thing about that is you have no control over it. You just
Right.
sit back and watch it play out, and there's nothing that you can do to make yourself win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you recognize that you had nothing to do with that
I
one.
did. I was putting my energy out there, and then my avatar, the computer felt it and had that final surge. That's what happened.
It's my story and I'm sticking to it. Is
I'm
that?
sticking to it.
Ryan, which one was your choice?
So I originally was going to go with WWF Attitude when I think it was PlayStation 1. Played a lot of that back in the day, did a lot of avatar changes and stuff. But last couple of years, I was unaware of Saturday Night Slam Masters on the Super Nintendo. And I was on vacation, ironically enough, in Pigeon Forge. And of course, anytime I'm on vacation, my wife hates it, but we go and check out a retro shop. And that was there and ended up picking it up. And I was like, oh my God, Hagar from Final Fight. And it's really well done. The graphics on it are great, especially for a Super Nintendo game. And I've played hours upon hours with that game. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that one's great.
Mm-hmm.
Leroy, would you like to add your comment to this one?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, all the ones mentioned here are amazing, except for maybe WWF Attitude. I don't know, that one. I couldn't, I'm sorry, but like I could not get into the button prompt for finishers, left down forward, X for Stone Cold Stunner. Like it didn't flow with what was happening in the game, except for me. I spent so much time with my friends playing No Mercy to where we would have the most amazing matches. So I think I got to go with that one, but I also really like WWF, the arcade game.
Oh,
yeah. Crazy Mortal Kombat style, wrestling style. Oh my God. Amazing.
Yeah, the full motion video capture of each individual character, like Razor Ramon and Yokozuna. I was just actually playing it a little while ago before the podcast started.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that was excellent.
So Donnie, what about you?
This was a tough one, and that's a sigh. That's a good sigh because there were so many wrestling games out there. Two of my personal favorites. One was Mat Mania. It's an arcade game that came out way back in the 80s. I spent so much money playing that game at a local 7-Eleven. And I even fired it up on the MAME emulator a little while ago and was playing it too. WWF No Mercy, WWF WrestleMania 2000, some great games, Saturday Night Slam Masters. It's hard for me to actually pick one. One that I have the fondest memory of is WWF WrestleFest.
Yeah.
I played that one a little while ago as well, just going through the gamut. But I have an interesting story regarding WWF WrestleFest. It was in our local arcades whenever I was a teenager, and I think I might have been 16, maybe 15. I don't really remember, but I was in the arcade, a local mall, Friday or Saturday night, and I'm almost at the end. Like I had like my mom gave me $20 for lunch for the next week for school, and I spent it all in the arcade that night. And I'm just chucking quarters into WrestleFest, and I finally get. I think second to the last match, and my sister comes in. She's like, "Hey, mom's waiting outside. It's time to go."
Oh.
And I said, "Oh, okay, all right." And I finished that match, and I was like, "Oh, okay, one last match." And it's like 5-10 minutes later, my sister comes back in. She's like, "Hey, mom says get outside. She wants to leave." I'm like, "Okay, all right, I'm coming right there." 2-3 minutes go by, and I'm almost there. I'm like, "Oh God, I'm finally gonna beat it." And all of a sudden, I hear my name being screamed at the top of her lungs in the arcade.
Oh.
I felt that to my core.
Donald, first name, second name, last name. And I'm like, oh, she's like, get your ass outside of this car right now. And everybody's just like stopping and looking like around who this is. And I leave the arcade game and I just like start walking out and everybody's pointing and laughing. And I see out of the corner of my eye somebody run over to the WrestleFest and start playing it because they seen that I had just left and there was still gameplay to be played, and it was just a bad experience.
You're lucky it wasn't nowadays because they would like take a picture of it and be like, "Look, I beat it."
I beat Legion of Doom.
Right.
I'm surprised she didn't beat me in front of everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm surprised you're still on this planet to be talking to us tonight after a truly a 3-name full name call out in the middle of an arcade.
Oh, I heard it the entire way home, which was only about maybe 10-15 minutes, but still it was bad. But nobody from school was there, so it didn't get relayed to everybody at school the next day and whatnot. Just everybody who was at the mall that night was probably like, okay, 30 years later, it's like, do you remember that one kid who got his...
What was his name? Donald something?
Yeah.
It's a local legend. He's got 3 names.
And it probably didn't get better for you when she learned you spent your lunch money on a game.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah, trust me, those were not good talks. When I'm like, hey, can I have some money for lunch? Like, I just gave you $20. Well,
about that.
What about second lunch? Yeah.
Yeah, lunch just got more expensive. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Don't call it.
It's inflation.
Don't lie to you.
And now it's time for patron shoutouts.
You wouldn't think that a brand new podcast would already have patrons, and frankly, no one is more surprised than we are. Here are the generous folks supporting Gamers Week on Patreon, and guess what? We have 2 new patrons to announce.
Yay!
Jim and Colleen, welcome and thank you so much. They are joining Games with Coffee, Davey PGH, the Redox PDX family, including Shannon and Luke, Zach Huge Thanks, Random Retro Dude, Michael Lundeen, Princess Kitty, Mew Mew, Mega, Retro Man, Emo-esque, Ryebread's #1 fan, Fruitcake's #1 stan, The Wizard of Zardoz, Clayman71, Great Saiyaman 81, BNT Zillaguy, Crunchy Kong, Sheriff Snacks, Frank Grande, producer BTW, and Ducks in Disguise. If you like what you hear today, and we really hope you do, please consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps cover the cost of producing the show, as well as other cool stuff we'll be doing, like prizes and giveaways. Visit patreon.com/gamersweek or follow the link in the show notes to learn more.
Now let's take a look at some of the headlines for this week.
All right, so first up from Game Rant, Netflix wants to be absolute best gaming service. In its latest quarterly earning Q&A, Netflix says that it plans for its gaming service to be the absolute best in the category. The response came from Netflix CEO Reed Hastings, who was asked about how Netflix plans to approach its gaming content long term. According to Hastings, Netflix says it has to be differentially great.
Yeah, that's a phrase and a half.
Right? At its gaming efforts, and there is no point in just being in it. In other words, Netflix needs to set itself apart with its gaming efforts, rather than just being another product that other companies may already be doing. Given that it's Netflix earnings report, it's understandable that Hastings is painting a grandiose picture of the company's gaming plans. However, the existing gaming service on Netflix is neither grandiose nor unique. It included with a Netflix subscription and currently grants access to 12 mobile games, all without microtransactions and in-app purchases. Apple Arcade is already a much more robust example of this kind of service Netflix is providing, and an advantage Netflix has yet to show it's driven to outcome. Interesting.
I saw that they had announced it's called Cat Burglar, and it's like a Tex Avery inspired interactive trivia tune.
Nice.
And the guys, the people who did Black Mirror, the creators Charlie Brooker and Annabelle Jones, were the writers behind it. And so it's a trivia game, but with like a Tom and Jerry twist. So if you answer correctly, Tom lives, but if you don't, he dies, and you get 3 lives, kind of thing. It looks really cool. Like the trailer looks great.
That's kind of what they need if they're going to pull this off, because
right.
I don't see it happening. They are so behind as far as the development of their gaming service. As it says, there's only 12 games. They're all mobile games. If Netflix really wants to be the absolute best gaming service, I don't see it happening, but games like what you just described, Leroy, are a good start.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds like to me like maybe their target market is clearly not us, is what I think is what they say, right? They're not looking for somebody who's really big into gaming that wants these type of games that are available on PS5, PC, what have you. And as we saw, as we kind of looked through the numbers from 2021, the marketplace for mobile games is enormous. So I think what it sounds like to me, and I'm speculating on this, I don't know for 100%, is that they're trying to capture that marketplace, that mobile marketplace, that people are already familiar with that Netflix name are going to go, cool, yeah, I like Candy Crush. I can play it on my TV. That's awesome. Let me do that. or I can play it on my phone and it's tied to my Netflix account, so I can charge stuff easy, I guess. I don't know. But nonetheless, it sounds to me like their target market is definitely not your average gamer that we think about when we think about gaming folks.
I think what's neat, though, with Netflix is they have access to a really big library of originals that would transfer well to game. Like the Stranger Things thing. Like they took the Stranger Things characters out of Dead by Daylight because they're going to be doing their own thing.
Oh, no kidding. I did not know that.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see what they'll come up. I mean, they have a lot of really cool IPs to make games out of.
For sure.
I'm just hoping that they, if they're going to do it, provide a controller, because I don't want to use my Roku controller to try to control a game.
Right.
That's step one. It's interesting. We'll see where it goes, I guess.
I'm really interested to see what Netflix has planned for this. I don't know where we're at with the whole gaming as a streaming service. I know it's it's in the future. It's where other companies like Microsoft and Sony want to be. It's where they want to be able to stream games to your box in your home. I just don't know what Netflix plans are. And something like Black Mirror, wasn't there an interactive movie or series on Netflix where you could actually, it's almost like a choose your own adventure type thing. Was that Black Mirror?
Yeah, it was called Bandersnatch.
Okay. And
it was really cool. It was neat. It was a neat way to, and then they just did one with WWE where it's like Escape the Undertaker. And it's like a horror Halloween themed, you're the New Day and you're trying to run away from the Undertaker, kind of choose your own adventure thing. So they exist. They're cool so far, but I mean, to be a full gaming service, it's not there yet.
Right.
Especially if, like I already said, they claim they want to be the absolute best gaming service, not the absolute best mobile gaming service, the absolute best
That's a good point.
gaming service. And you can't do that unless you've got the cool indies, the big shiny AAAs, many genres, stuff that will appeal to everybody. They got a long freaking way to go.
That doesn't sound differentially great to me, though.
and the problem is with the marketplace, too, is if it's free, if it all comes with a subscription, that's a great start because tons of people have that subscription already. So if it's going to keep people around. But like I bought the Stadia and, the controller and all that, the Founders Edition, and the fact that there was no real sales on games, like all games were new releases were 6-month-old games at full price, and it was just like, well, why would I play it on here? I'm just going to buy it for $5 elsewhere,
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Stadia is going through those same hiccups that Netflix is going to have to address, and Stadia hasn't found a way around it yet. So we'll see.
All right, Leroy, would you mind taking the next topic at hand?
Yeah, I mind big time. Sorry, I'm not a reader. I don't know how to do it. No, I'm in.
And that's the podcast, sir.
I'm here to talk, not to read. So from Slashgear, EA and Respawn announced 3 new Star Wars games, including a Fallen Order follow-up. Electronic Arts, which I work for, they're the worst, announced today that 3 new Star Wars games are in development at Respawn Entertainment. One of the games confirmed in today's announcement from EA includes the next game in the Star Wars Jedi series. While most of us probably already have assumed a follow-up to 2019's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was in the works, it's nice to have this confirmation. Aside from the next Star Wars Jedi game, Respawn will also be working on a new FPS Star Wars title and a new Star Wars strategy game. The FPS will be directed by Peter Hirschman, but the strategy game is a little more intriguing because Respawn will only be acting as a producer on the title. Development will be handled by BitReactor, which is a freshly launched studio led by Greg Forshish. Electronic Arts confirmed today that all of these games are already in development. Though given its press release was short on details, we're guessing that all of them are in the early stages.
I'm glad we actually have confirmation from EA on this title as opposed to last week when we had somebody who said, Nintendo may or may not be making this game. It may or may not contain this. It may or may not be this 2D or 3D. Who knows? We'll see.
You doubt Nate the hate, but he gets it done. So, as you guys know, Star Wars is dead to me, but are any of you looking forward to these games?
I liked Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was fun. I never beat it, but I enjoyed what I played. I mean, yeah, give me a great Star Wars game. I'm not the biggest Star Wars movie fan, but I really like some of the games. Like Jedi Power Battles on the PlayStation was amazing. So if you can give me some great stuff, I'm in. I'm all about fun games.
Masters of Terras
Terras
Kasai.
Kasai. Just like
An oldie but goodie. My kids have been playing was it Battlefront? Star Wars Battlefront, one of the newer releases. The first one that they came out with, I have to admit, I was blown away the fact that I could pilot the Millennium Falcon and just like how smooth the gameplay was and how cool it looked and all the sounds and the ambience and everything. It really was spectacular, but I haven't touched it since.
And then the second one, when they decided you had to grind for 40 hours if you wanted to unlock Darth Vader. And then it was such a PR nightmare. They walked it all back and said, just kidding. We'll change the progression system. Jedi Fallen Order was well received. A lot of people liked it. But let's be realistic. We are still talking about EA here. Maybe they've learned their lessons from the reception of their past games. Maybe not. But you can pretty much guarantee that these are going to be stuffed to the brim of microtransactions, play to earn stuff.
EA seems like the bully that's never going to learn their lesson, and they're going to continue to be a jerk on the playground forever and ever.
Mm-hmm. And considering these are the last games that I believe they're going to make before the exclusivity contract transfers over to Ubisoft, I imagine they're going to want to get every penny out of them that they can.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking forward to any of these, Ryan?
To be honest with you, I haven't gotten to a Star Wars game in years, so it's kind of off of my radar. But to kind of Leroy's point here, if it's a good Star Wars game, I hear a lot of good things about it. I'm always interested in getting involved with it because I love the entire IP for Star Wars. I know, Blue, you only like a certain part of it that was produced prior to 1990s. But I've loved every single movie. I've been getting big into Boba Fett, The Mandalorian, all that stuff, watching even like The Bad Batch and all that stuff. So to bring back some nostalgia for it, I like strategy games as well. So that should be something that might be in my wheelhouse as well. But we'll see.
The 3 Darth Vader games that are on the Oculus Quest are awesome. They're a ton of just wrecking stormtroopers with a lightsaber is so much fun.
Oh, that sounds
now
amazing.
I have played that on VR. That was great. Has anybody played Knights of the Old Republic?
Oh, of course. I love Knights of the Old Republic.
That's Ryan's jam right there. Did you hear they're changing it completely with the remake?
Oh, no.
It's not going to be turn-based.
Oh.
You knew it wasn't.
I know. I can always dream, though, can't I?
Sure, if it makes you happy.
Those will turn into nightmares.
It's usually how it goes.
All right, next up from The Hollywood Reporter, Activision Blizzard declines to voluntarily recognize union. Activision Blizzard has declined to voluntarily recognize a worker union announced on January 21st, the first to be declared within the video game holding company. The group, called the Game Workers Alliance, is allied with the Communication Workers of America. We carefully reviewed and considered the CWA initial request last week and tried to find a mutually acceptable solution with the CWA that would have led to an expedited election process. Unfortunately, the parties could not reach an agreement, an Activision Blizzard spokesperson said on Tuesday afternoon. We are deeply disappointed that Raven Software and Activision Blizzard refused to uplift workers' rights by choosing to not voluntarily recognize our union in spite of our supermajority support, the group said in a statement. Activision Blizzard's announcement arrives the same day that CWA National Organizing Director Tom Smith released a statement admonishing the company for an organizational restructuring, which Smith saw as nothing more than a tactic to thwart Raven QA workers who are exercising their right to organize.
I worked at Activision for like 2 weeks.
Oh.
I was supposed to work on Modern Warfare 2, and Infinity Ward wouldn't send them the source code because they didn't trust them for whatever reason. So we sat around in a heavily secured, guarded room and played Modern Warfare 1 multiplayer for like 2 weeks. And they're like, well, I guess we're going to send everyone home and we'll call you back when if we get the code.
Oh, geez.
And I never got a call back. So I'm assuming they got it, but they wouldn't want Activision to test the game, which I thought was funny.
You lived the dream for 2 weeks. You got paid to play video games.
No, video game testing is the worst job ever. I mean, I know we're doing news. I won't get into it, but yeah, it's the worst.
I almost did get into it. So I have a degree in game art and design. And initially, awesome. my school was trying to get me. They're like, oh, well, the only thing we can help you find a job for is game tester. And at the time, I was, I have a wife. I had a newborn son, had a house, and they're like, we want you to pick you up and move you over to California or New York, where you can be a game tester and not get paid squadouche. And I'm like, that's not really what I'm looking for right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like at EA, when I quit, we were working from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. 6 days a week.
Ooh.
Oh.
And then they had someone come in and say, hey, guess what? Good news. We do have to come in on Sundays now, but it's only a half day. Isn't that exciting? And I quit on the spot.
I don't blame you.
I love that spin, though. That's great.
Yeah, they tried. I appreciate that.
We are all tremendously surprised to hear that Activision Blizzard would not want to recognize a union. What is interesting, though, is that this is the very first union for video game workers. And if you think about the precedent that something like this could set, if this idea of unionizing, either maybe it's this particular union spreads nationwide and game workers from all the different developers could join, or if the different developing houses get their own unions. I mean, however it works. Think about the radical culture change that this would probably prompt, from hours like Leroy was just describing to regular human hours. The idea of crunch would be a thing of the past. It would never happen. The gaming industry would, I don't want to say they want to have to restructure, but the way that they plan their marketing, the way that they plan their releases, the way that they do everything would have to change, just by the simple fact that workers would have the right to demand how they want their schedules and how they want their work environments.
Right. Fair treatment. It's not like you can just drive somebody into the ground and tell them that they have to come in. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't go on vacation. You can't celebrate a holiday because we have this release coming up and you have to work. You have to work. You have to work. Okay, great. We've made gold. We got AAA status. We've released the game, and here you go. Here's your pink slip.
Yep. Bye.
And you're like, and that does happen in the game industry, and I'm sure Leroy can attest to this.
Oh yeah, like half the jobs were game's done. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. And I got let go from Neversoft. I had this weird stomach issue. I had to go to the hospital. It was weird. I came back Monday and my card wasn't working anymore.
Ooh.
Oh.
And so I had to wait till someone like opened the door, and I followed them in behind, and my boss was surprised to see me there. And I'm like, yeah, sorry about that weird thing on Friday. I was feeling terrible, but I'm okay now. And they're like, yeah, come back here. Let's talk. And they're like, yeah, we fired like half the crew on Friday right after you left. You were a part of that. So I had a $13,000 hospital bill and just lost my job at the same time.
You know, if these stories of how the video game industry has been treating workers for decades, it's like, how can you be surprised that you're driving them to want to unionize? You can't. It's inevitable. They're going to do it. And they should do it.
Up next, we've got from Games Radar, The Rock says he is bringing one of the biggest, most badass games to the screen.
Know your role and shut your mouth.
All right. I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
No, I didn't mean it.
In an interview with Men's Journal, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was asked if he had any plans to bring video game characters to the big screen, to which he replied, I can't tell you which game in particular we're doing, but there will be an announcement this year, before adding that we're going to bring one of the biggest, most badass games to the screen, one that I've played for years. Johnson explained how he plans to do right by our gamer friends, but that they really were just going to make a great movie. When not working on an upcoming video game movie, Johnson is busy keeping up with a number of acting projects. The star recently finished filming the upcoming DC film Black Adam, in which the ex-WWE wrestler plays the titular role. DC projects aside, Johnson will also be filming a Jungle Cruise sequel alongside co-star Emily Blunt, and not one, but two Red Notice sequels alongside Wonder Woman star Gal Gadot and Ryan Reynolds.
Taylor.
I'm for it. He's going to be Buck Bumble. I know it.
Love it.
Buck Bumble.
I'm interested in seeing what game they're talking about bringing to the big screen. Is it Frogger? Is it Qbert?
So, yeah, everybody right now, go on the record. What game do you think? Because he already did Doom.
Yep.
He did Rampage.
Yep.
I liked Doom, but yeah, I didn't like Rampage at all. We didn't get a giant rock fighting monkeys. I'm pretty mad about that.
So many possibilities they didn't bring to fruition.
Right. So, Donnie, what is your guess?
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Tailspin.
What?
Okay.
I don't know. I have a feeling. I don't know. He's in bed with Disney. I can only see them coming with like maybe a Chippendales Rescue Rangers type thing, possibly turning Tailspin into a live action movie, just like what they did with the Jungle Book. I'm saying Tailspin.
That is not what I expected.
I know. Blowing your minds right now.
You really are. You really, really are.
I didn't pick a T for teen rated game. I didn't pick something with guns or big muscles. For me, it's Tailspin.
All right. Leroy, what is your guess?
I'm kind of on a 50-50 split here. I feel like it could go either way, and I also kind of feel like these are really the only two roles that are fit for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm thinking Gex the Gecko or Bubsy the Bobcat.
I love it.
Gex or Bubsy, man.
You guys are killing me.
That's where I'm going with it.
A Bubsy movie, though. Oh my gosh, the potential.
Pilot's license? What for? Can't you see The Rock saying that? It'd be awesome.
Oh my god, that's great. Him just bouncing all
Jumping nonstop.
gliding down, and oh man, there's so many possibilities.
So Ryan, what about you? What's your pick?
So I've always thought that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson looked like Mr. Dream for Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. So I'm going to go a Mike Tyson's Punch-Out Rocky style movie.
Ryan Reynolds is Little Mac.
I love it.
Oh, God, that would be great.
Oh my gosh.
And whenever whoever plays Mac or whatever, if he gets knocked down and he's trying to make his way back to the to his corner, your trainer is saying, "Join the Nintendo Fun Club today." And the guy looking up at him is like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah. He was actually trying to give him real advice, but he's so punch drunk that's what he heard.
Right. It's like his eyes, everything's spinning, and it's like, "Join the Nintendo Fun Club today." I love it.
You know, I wasn't on board with that at first, but the more you keep pitching it to me, the more I like it.
Oh, we can make it work.
Yeah.
Dwayne, we know you're listening. So even if you were not doing that, you now have a new project.
Yeah, we'll have it written over the weekend. It'll be great.
We could get a couple of energy drinks. We could knock that out in a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Blue, what about you?
I had two. The first one might be Kratos.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I see that.
He would certainly fit the physique, but Kratos, you know, he's either quiet and stoic or he swings over to like exploding rage. The Rock has a bunch of charisma. He likes to smile. I don't know if that's a good fit besides just the physique. My other guess, and hear me out, Simon Belmont.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. That'd be awesome.
Right?
Okay.
We don't have a Castlevania movie. I don't know if we need a Castlevania movie, honestly, but if it was done right, it could be epic. But the reason I say it is I have the cover art from the NES Castlevania poster sized and up in my living room. And you should see the build. Like, have you ever really looked at Simon's build on that cover art? It's
Like Arnold Schwarzenegger etch.
Yeah, he does not skip leg day. The muscles on that cover art. So I think that The Rock playing Simon, like that version of Simon, that would be a good fit.
So do you think they play him like an idiot like he was in Captain N the Game Master?
Yes.
That old cartoon?
I hope not.
Oh, man, you could do a movie for just Captain and the Game Master.
That would be funny. That would be really funny.
As long as Mega Man still has the same voice.
Hey, guys.
Exactly.
What are we doing today? Is that Mother Brain?
I actually have that entire series that I ripped from whenever I had my like actual DVD Netflix.
You mean you bought legally?
Yeah, that's illegal.
I bought legally. Yes, sorry.
That's what we should watch for the patron-only movie night.
Captain N, let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
I'll
Totally.
cue it up.
Captain N for Smash Bros. Come on.
There you go.
That's what I wanted.
He needs a comeback. So let's move on to our top 3 new releases that we have this week. Up first is The Artful Escape, coming out for the PS5, PS4, and Switch. A teenager guitar prodigy sets out on a psychedelic journey to inspire his stage persona and confront the legacy of a dead folk legend. Starring voice performances by Michael Johnston, Caroline Kinley, Lena Headey, Jason Schwartzman, Mark Strong, and Carl Weathers. Did I see Lena Headey in there?
You did.
Oh, Cersei. Ooh, I wonder which.
Do you need a minute, Donnie?
No, it gives me chills just hearing her name that's going to be in something. I don't know if does anybody watch Game of Thrones, or did you watch Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Just one or two people did.
Did you see the Judge Dredd remake that came out a couple years ago?
Oh yeah, her. She's great.
Oh, she was badass in that. She is a scary woman when she wants to be, for whatever character that she plays. And I mean, my hat's off to her as far as her acting chops. But yeah, when I see her name, I'm just like, I get a little scared.
It's gonna be a good time.
Up next is Circuit Superstars for the PlayStation 4, a top-down physics-driven racing game for PC and consoles. It combines arcade-style racing with more realistic tactile driving physics, which brings together a whole range of styles and eras of motorsport. And last but not least, Pokemon Legends Arceus?
Arceus, I think, is what the YouTubers have been saying.
Arceus? Okay. Coming out for the Switch, a brand new game from Game Freak that blends action and exploration with the RPG roots of the Pokemon series. Are you familiar with any one of these that are coming out?
As far as Pokemon, I'm a Gen 1er, so I haven't touched that.
I'm a 151 purist.
And it's not because I'm a purist. I don't know. I just, for some reason or another, I just never, I mean, I own a bunch of Pokemon stuff. I've never sat down and been like, today's the day we're going to play Pokemon again. I don't know why. I honestly, it's not that I don't like it. It's not that I don't think they're probably great games. I just, for one reason or another, that's the way it is.
Yeah. I played Sword for 2 days and I had some fun and I'm like, I'm done. Moving on.
Right. That's enough for me.
But this one looks neat. This one is a much bigger, it kind of looks like Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Graphically, but gameplay wise, you're instead of running into a Pokemon and then going into the battle, it's you're running around as the character throwing Pokeballs, trying to fight him, and then bringing out your Pokemon if you need to weaken the other one to try to catch it. It's a different game style, so I'm interested in that.
Well, yeah, the Pokemon Legends Arceus is pretty clearly the biggest release of the week. I'm a little more interested in The Artful Escape just because I like weird indie games.
Mm-hmm.
So I might be checking that out. It looks different.
And it's got Apollo Creed in it.
Right?
Mm-hmm. And it's got Apollo Creed in it. Cersei and Apollo Creed.
Or Dutch from Predator.
Dutch from Predator. That's right.
Yep.
So now on to our sponsor segment of the show.
So Gamers Week is proudly sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast. It's a fantastic, family-friendly retro gaming podcast. In each episode, Rob and Hugh pick 2 games to play and discuss, as well as news, interviews, and other topics. They released episode 113, where they talk about playing the original Prince of Persia on the Apple Watch, which is awesome, and how the Nintendo Game Boy is the worst possible way to watch movies. I don't doubt it. Mm-hmm. So visit retrogameclub.net to check them out or follow the link in the show notes.
And now on to the main topic of the show, who's been with us the entire show so far, Mr. Leroy Patterson. Yay!
Ah, crap. Here's the boring part. Skip 20 minutes and we're good.
Okay, Leroy, like we said a little bit earlier, we first talked about you in our second episode when the story of your epic Sneak King collection was making the rounds of the video game outlets. You said you were up to 2816 copies? Is that what
yeah, 2816, correct.
Okay. So we got to start this interview off by asking, why Sneak King of all titles?
So it started just as a joke. I was at the dollar store in 2016 because I had a copy of all 3 Burger King games when they first came out through the stores. I bought the combo meal, got the game.
Yep.
But yeah, at the dollar store in 2016, it was right before I was about to go do America's Got Talent. They had 50 copies chilling at the dollar store. And I was like, that would be such a funny gift to give to people for Christmas. Everyone I know is getting a Sneak King.
Oh, that's great.
So I bought all 50. and put them in my game shelf just temporarily, waiting for Christmas. And I liked how they looked on the shelf. It made me laugh to have that many copies. So I decided to keep them. And then I would, whenever I was at GameStop or mom and pop shop, I'd see if they had any Sneak Kings. Usually stores are selling them for $1 or $2. So over time, over many years, I collected about 200 of them. And then after I got the vaccine, I wanted to film a series. I'd gotten hooked on YouTube channels like Retro Rick or Phoenix Resale, where they go out into the world and find copies of video games, whatever. I love that concept. Yep. But I decided hey, let's do it where we go out and try to find as many copies of Sneak King as we can. Give it a weird twist. We have an animated sidekick. It'll be a fun series. And so on the second episode, we ended up buying 1,000 copies, which ruined the whole idea of everything. Be like, yeah, we'll collect 2 or 3 a week, and it's so now it's become a bigger thing that we have to keep trying to top ourselves. Recently we bought 2,900 copies of all 3 games. So I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of 700 copies of the other 2 games, but I added the Sneak Kings to my pile. So it's a joke that is still funny to me, and as long as it continues to be funny, I'm going to keep collecting. And I like threatening people that I'm going to steal their copies. Some people seem to like that. One person was offended, and I had to assure them privately that I was kidding. Calm down. I don't mean it. It's jokes. It's jokes. But yeah, it's something that I just find funny and stupid, and I'm all about. I will go to the ends of the earth for a stupid joke, and that's one of them.
Take all the other copies of the games that you don't want, put them in a sack, a la Jake the Snake Roberts, take them with you to the ring, and just throw them out into the crowd.
I wanted to do that in AEW during the debut. Is I wanted to work the Sneak King thing into it. Things moved so fast, so I didn't really have a chance to. But yeah, if we can get it passed by legal, that is something I would totally be down to do.
Great,
nice.
That's hilarious. Just start handing them out like Halloween instead of candy. Here you go, kids.
Just throw them long ways and at children and stuff and hope for the best.
What the crap is this?
Yeah, I was going to say, the kid's going to be like, what is this?
Can I play this on my PS5?
Yeah, sure. Give that a try.
Yeah, keep trying, idiot.
You're going to end up with your house DP'd.
That's a mean parent. But yeah, so it's just still funny to us. We're doing a YouTube channel called Sneak Kings. So if you go on YouTube and look up, it's Kings with a Z, because we're extreme from 2001.
Uber elite.
Yeah. And yeah, it's been a fun series so far, where we keep injuring our cartoon host and beating the crap out of each other and talking about Sneak King and whatever other games we find along the way.
Yeah, I did watch through your Sneak King channel the other night, and definitely looking forward. You've got 3 episodes so far, so I imagine it's a little tough to shoot right now.
Yeah, we definitely want to do more episodes. There's this big celebrity get we're trying to make happen right now. There's 2 sides to it. One side is approved and good, and we're good to go. We're still waiting on the other one. The other one's been busy. If we can make that happen, awesome. If not, we're just going to go with the one. I don't want to spoil it yet. We may just film in episode 4 and then try to do the celebrity thing for episode 5. But yeah, definitely more episodes on the way. We just, with COVID, makes it tough. And with Go Big Show promotions and AEW stuff, we've been busy. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely something we want to keep pursuing.
Yeah, nice.
Excellent. So I know you're kind of in the same age group as us, which means we probably remember a lot of the same things when it comes to gaming from the ye old days, if you will. So what was gaming for you like growing up as a kid?
I remember seeing an Atari 2600 at a friend's house and thinking it was one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen. Like, you can control what's happening on the TV. Like, that concept is insane, and I'm in. How do I do it? And then I was 9 or 10 when I got my Nintendo. For my birthday, and it was from that moment on I was hooked. I just nonstop gaming. I've been collecting my whole life. I just got over the 2,000 or 2,500 mark on physical copies of games
that aren't.
I have like 6 arcade machines. I've got 76 systems.
Wow.
I've got a large game, and then all the, in addition to that, all the 2,816 copies of Sneak King.
I was gonna say
those are separate.
When you think you have a big collection and then somebody else comes and makes a bigger flex and you're like, man, I wish I had what he has.
I mean, half of it's probably shovelware. I love to go to, like, one of my favorite things right now, I do it every day, is I go to a thrift store, one of the local thrift stores, and just look for games. And if I don't have it and it's under $4, then I'm in, then I'll buy whatever. So a good chunk of it is, shovelware, but there are some bangers in there, some good stuff. I found a Rule of Rose at for $3.
I thought you were joking about that on your channel. You said, yeah, I got this for $3. I was like, they're lying. They're doing that for a joke, and you really got it for $3.
Yeah, I did like 6 years ago, but yeah, it's half the stuff on Sneak Kings is true, and then half of it is like some kind of joke, and I don't like revealing which is which all the time, but. That one I didn't even know it was worth anything when I got it, and it sat on a shelf for years. And then I was watching some YouTube video of like, here's the top 10 most expensive PS2 games, and that was on. And I was like, wait, what? The game I have
for $3?
I had to look to the shelf to consult, and I was like, oh my god, all right, great.
I see people posting on Reddit all the time about like, I stopped in at Goodwill today and this is what I found. And it's but stuff like Rule of Rose or some other obscure like Clock Tower or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I do the same thing in my area. There are a couple of Goodwills within like a 5-mile radius that I go in. I haven't done as much lately, but I was doing it like every day where I could just go in, walk in. Nope, nothing there. Okay, go on to the next one. Yada yada yada. And there's tons of people that do that as well.
Yeah, I just found a stack of Nintendo games today. Nothing crazy, but some good ones, some ones I didn't have. So that was a thrill. But probably one of my best scores was it was like $500+ worth of GameCube games. Mm-hmm. It was like all the Zeldas. Ooh. It was Smash Bros. And Mario Kart, and just all a lot of heavy hitters for the GameCube, all just in a pile. And I was like, oh my god, $3 each. I felt like I was robbing the store.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a thrill. And I've been chasing that high ever since.
Nice.
You and I could share some stories, man.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we could after the podcast.
Yes.
I am apparently going to all the wrong Goodwills.
Right.
I think you are.
I just looked up the price of what Rule of Rose would have been in like 2016, and it hovers around $200. So even in 2016, you got a heck of a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that worked out.
So one of the things that we've all noticed over the years is that if you had a Venn diagram with retro gaming fans on one side and wrestling fans on the other, that diagram has a ton of overlap. Why do you think there's such a strong crossover between retro gaming fans and wrestling fans?
I think it's the nostalgia hit. A lot of us wrestling fans have been wrestling fans for a long time, or they've inspired, the next generation on. And I think that back in the day, like wrestling and video games were the two things that kept me going every single day, that were my main interests growing up, which is why I became a professional wrestler and why I got into the video game industry, which I'll never do again. But with wrestling, it's you think back to those moments where you knew that it was real. And I mean, like, it's real as far as like I'm getting hit in the face by people and chucked out of the ring and slammed really hard. It's real in that sense.
Don't ever tell somebody that likes wrestling that it's not real.
No, it's predetermined, worked, sure,
right,
fair, but no, it's not fake. Let's see if the mic could pick this up. There's this guy Sabu, who's a legend in the sport, hit me really hard once, and so my jaw still clicks. So let's see.
Oh my god.
That's my jaw.
It sounds like you're hitting the keyboard.
Yeah, it does.
That's my jaw clicking. So it's not fake. It's very real. But when you're young, video games are there for you and wrestling is there for you.
One of the things I've noticed too is AEW in particular, the fans of that wrestling federation are very much fans of retro gaming. So if you can see signs throughout the entire
the signs are the best.
Right. And one of the things that I saw with it, so I wasn't aware of this until probably a year and a half ago or so, or maybe a year ago, where I saw a gentleman holding a sign that said Earthbound sucks. So I got a little butthurt. Right. But there are some really, really funny ones. So I looked up some examples of it. So somebody's holding a sign that says the worst Fire Emblem games are better than the best Paper Mario.
Oh, shots fired.
Yeah, Persona 5 sucks. And Final Fantasy 8 is filth. Let's see what else. There's some positive ones,
I was
though.
like, they're so negative.
Right? And Final Fantasy 8 is underrated. That's one of them.
It's best when they have the reaction signs. Like, yeah, someone has Final Fantasy 8 sucks, and then the next week, someone's like, "Oh, I'm going to respond to that."
Right.
You follow the storyline through the whole season.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, guys, I'm actually going to Royal Rumble this Saturday.
Oh.
I'm taking my 2 kids. So now
Bring
that I'm hearing
sign.
about, that's what I'm just getting ready to say. We need to come up with a sign for whatever video game we want to advertise.
Night Trap
there.
is the best game ever.
Yeah, okay. I'll do
Trap.
Night Trap with a Gamers Week podcast thing on the other side.
That'll be
Love it.
hilarious.
Love it.
If that shows up on TV and
It'll show up. Trust
I'll
me,
look
it'll
for it.
show up.
that would be epic. So we've already heard a little bit about your time working as a game tester, Leroy, and it sounds like it was kind of rough.
Yeah, it sucked.
So what were the
worst.
best parts and what were the worst parts of that job?
So I worked for Neversoft for a year, and I got really good at the Guitar Hero games to the point where I would go to tournaments in my time off and wreck people at tournaments.
There were Guitar Hero tournaments?
Yeah, they would have them at like music stores and stuff like that, where you'd be up against 8 other bands or whatever, and we'd always wreck the competition. It was a ton of fun. But I worked on Guitar Hero 5 and Band Hero. I mean, as far as testing goes, those were pretty fun. It's just everything else that surrounded the actual game itself sucked. I got to work on Duke Nukem Forever, which was awesome because I love Duke Nukem 3D so much. It was a big monument to me as a kid, and so to get to work on that one for a little while was super neat. And yeah, most of the rest of the time I was working on kids games, and it was the worst. Like Dora the Explorer on the DS, I worked on for 4 months.
Swiper, no swiping.
How many hours did you have to put into Dora?
I don't even know. 4 months working, 12-hour days half the time. I don't know.
All on Dora.
Excelente. All right, cool. Thanks. Thank you. Moving on.
And just randomly you hear her theme song pop up on the TV and you start having PTSD.
I legitimately had that with SpongeBob. The first game testing job I had, I quit because of SpongeBob SquarePants and the Flying Dutchman on PS2. And I lost my friggin' mind. And I left and I went to Australia and I went to stunt school because I was like, I am never doing this job again. And that was my first of like 12 game jobs. So I failed on that promise, but I did go to stunt school in Australia and that was fun. I spent my college fund because I was decided not to go to college and went to stunt school instead.
Nice. Which I'm sure has helped a lot with wrestling.
Oh, it has, yeah. It's worked out more than a college degree would have. So
there you go. It's funny that you bring up the fact that having to test kids' games was the worst. So there's a like an old training video for Sega game testers. It's like back from the 90s or early 2000s, and they're running through it and they're asking them questions like, "What's the best part about working here?" It's like, "Oh, I get involved with the games." And then they go to one guy and they're like, "What's the worst part?" And he's like, "Every time I got to test a Sega Pico game," and he like kicks it.
Oh man, yeah. If you messed up, you got like dumped into like the cell phone department. I know one of the people I got to know pretty well at, I won't say the company, but they signed like some really important document. They hearted all their eyes and like they did not take it seriously. And so they within a week got moved to the cell phone department and had to test cell phone games all day. And this was not smartphone cell phone games. This was pre-iPhone.
The old Nokia.
Yeah, this was bad. It was really bad. And they'd be on it for like a month. Same thing for
how long can you play Snake?
10 hours a day. It's the freaking worst. And what's neat though is because everyone's in the same boat, most people go insane at the same time.
That sounds dangerous.
I had a conversation in Squirrel for like an hour and with another coworker until the other 4 people on our team just lost it and told us to shut up, and it was a really like tense situation. But yeah, it was like, just talking in Squirrel for an hour because we were on hour 18 of Monsters Inc. Scream Arena that day. Just freaking lost our mind. Yeah, so like it's nice to go insane with other people, but going insane sucks.
I have a whole new perspective of what hell is going to be like thanks to this conversation.
Yeah, So here's what Neversoft would do is we would be going home at 5 p.m. So it's 4:58. We're like, all right, cool. We're not doing overtime today. No one said anything. We'd start to pack up, and our supervisor would be like, hey, why are you guys packing up? We're doing overtime today. And we're like, oh, all right. How long? We'll let you know.
We'll
let you know. And so you'd go for 3 hours, past your time. And you're like, when the hell are we going? You're just angry. You're like, well, there go my dinner plans. I had movie tickets tonight. Like, you can't have a social life when you're a game tester because the amount of overtime is insane. And with how little they care about you. And this was 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So maybe it's changed. But it was just the worst. We were just treated like crap. And anytime I tried to better my situation, it would backfire on me. So like I was working on SpongeBob, and one of the guys that was working on the SmackDown games, the WWE SmackDown, hated wrestling and he loved SpongeBob. And we talked at lunch, and I was like, look, I'm going to go to the lead supervisors of the QA department, and I'm going to see if they'll let us switch. And he's like, oh my God, that would be amazing. I'm so in. And I was like, look, I'm a professional wrestler. I feel like I could bring an insight to the wrestling world, into the wrestling games that other testers might not have. Whereas I hate SpongeBob, and I found someone on the wrestling team who loves SpongeBob. Can we switch? And they were like, no, get back to work. I'm like, all right.
Wow.
No. Cool. Thanks, you too. And then went back to my desk, and I snuck my Xbox in underneath my desk so I could listen to music while I was playing the game. Oh my God, it's just the worst. And I'm amazed anytime a game works, because after seeing how the meal is made, right. Anytime someone complains about a bug or a minor graphical annoyance or anything, I'm just like, you don't even know. You don't even know did anyone ever test this? Yes. And they were miserable, and they did it for hours and hours. But the one thing that I always try to think about is, okay, let's say, a team of 20, 40 people, big, huge game, 40 people tested for 10 months or whatever, or, 8 months or whatever it's going to be. They're putting in, I don't know the math. I don't want to do the math, but 400,000 hours, let's say. There's been 400,000 hours of testing on this game, and it shipped. In the first hour that it's released, if it's a big game, 1 million people have played it. Within that first hour, 1 million hours have gone into playing it. And the chances that they're going to find something that we didn't find are huge. And when you get to the last few months of a project, most bugs, if it doesn't crash the game, and if it's not a progress blocker or something like that, they're not going to fix it, because every fix can mess up 3 other aspects of the game. You change one item or you change one thing, and it's going to be a cascade of problems and issues. Software is held together with like duct tape and string and sticks. And the fact that it even works always amazes me, because I've seen what goes into doing it. And for as big as games are now, it's one thing to work on a Guitar Hero game. It's the same game every time, just different songs. Maybe you add in, new graphics, new things, new note types, whatever. You change it up a little bit, but the core gameplay is always going to be the same. So those are fairly easy to test. But a game like Grand Theft Auto 3 and then going to Grand Theft Auto 4, the amount of difference in the two is insane. And to test in-game bugs, you have to beat the game every time during that cycle of the build. So let's say that, I get a copy of a game, and I did this with Philo World Tour Tennis. One of the I beat the game and the game crashed. I got to the final thing, boom, game crashes. I'm like, great. So I got to write up the bug, and it's a huge long document on how exactly 100% to replicate that bug. So boom, you go through, you finish it off, you send off the thing, and they go, great, we fixed it. So now I got to beat the game again. The problem is they also fixed the bug where if I move my character all the way to the left and then hit full power all the way to the left, the computer will never, ever hit that shot.
Oh, no.
So because they fixed that bug, it used to take me 6 hours to beat the game. Now it takes me 22 because I actually have to play the thing. And I have to beat it before the next build comes in.
Wow.
So I end up having to stay for 3 days straight to beat this thing. And then I do, and the end of the game, it just goes, game over, you win, and then kicks you out to the main menu. Did they fix it? Technically, yes. It doesn't crash anymore. Is it a satisfying ending? No.
No, not by any means.
It's terrible. But it's what it is. And with the amount of time that you have to work on something, like, it's as good as it's going to be, unfortunately. And sometimes you just have to be okay with that. People nowadays expect every game to be 100% perfect. And also to be a generation further along than the previous games.
So you can sympathize with CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh, well, I mean, kind of. That thing should have been pushed another year. Like that, it's a balance, you know. So people crap on the Avengers game. I think it's pretty great. I really enjoy it. But there are a lot, and some of it's warranted, you know, some of the things. But I think it's a great game, and I think they made a really, really cool thing. And I think that people digest the game so quick, and you know, they were ready for endgame content within 3 days after the game coming out. And it's like, it takes so long to make this stuff. It took them 4 years, 5 years, and you're done with it in 2 days, and you want more. And they're like, we just worked 5 years, blood, sweat, and tears. We destroyed ourselves. And you're like, nom, 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 nom. Hey, that was pretty good. What else you got?
Yeah.
I don't know. Here, new character. Here you go. No, cool. You know, I could have used a little bit more ranch dressing on it. What else you got? And you're like, I don't know. You know, like gamers are so hungry for stuff nowadays, and it takes longer to make stuff because it's so advanced. And I'm sorry for rambling, but it's just such like I give game developers a lot more leeway just because I've seen how it's done. And if you've never made, I made my own game recently in the last few years. It's like a Mortal Kombat style live action, you know, digitized actors kind of thing, for Giphy. And it's amazing when something works and it works well. And you're like, oh my God, it worked. This is great. And then that's one victory. And then there's 40 other failures where you're like, why? Sure. Why I changed the number once and now it's doing the completely different thing that it was doing before, and I don't. And then you change the number back and now it's broken.
So, what are your go-to games now?
Oh man, my two mainstays that I always slap on every couple days is like Fortnite and Dead by Daylight. Those are the two that I play a lot on PC. I've just been playing Hades. I finally got into that last week.
That's a good one.
So good. I'm having a blast with that one. I really like the Yakuza series. Mm-hmm. I've been playing through those. I played 7 when the Series X came out. And I was like, this game is amazing. I want more. And so I went back to the previous and bought all the other Yakuza games. And so I'm playing through all those slowly and loving those. Those are great. I play a lot of mobile games, like, you know, when I'm like laying in bed, ready to go to bed or something. I play like Marvel Puzzle Quest or WWE Supercard, AEW Elite GM, Pokemon Go, you know, stuff like that.
I played Supercard for a hot minute.
Oh yeah, Supercard's a ton of fun. Friday the 13th Killer Puzzle. And I'm not just promoting this game because I'm in it as a victim that Jason kills.
Yeah, I saw a clip where you died many ways. Many ways that I would never even thought of.
There's 150 or something ways to kill a person, and I die all of them. Yeah, that game's a ton of fun too. I highly suggest that one.
I have seen that game. I haven't had a chance to try it out yet. I'm not a huge mobile game player.
At least get to stage 2-6.
2-6. That's where we will find Leroy Patterson.
2-6. It's me in my underwear in jail. It's pretty funny.
Boxer or briefs?
I usually go with the combination, the boxer brief, because I get the freedom to be able to, like, you know, breathe and live, but there's no risk of anything, you know, any unsightly business happening on camera.
That was put eloquently.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's a man of taste.
Whatever it takes to keep everything in, but still feel like, you know, ready to go.
Right. So, where can people find you if they want more Leroy Patterson?
Oh man, you want more? I just gave a whole bunch. You're like gamers, man.
You said it yourself. The gamers want more.
Want it.
Like gamer, any social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm either Leroy Patterson or Human Tackboard on all of those. Sneak Kings on YouTube with a Z. That's a very fun series. You could look up No Mercy Video, which is our stunt team. We had a viral video stunt team for 15 years. I'm on the Go Big show coming out. There's a bunch of, just go on YouTube and look up Leroy Patterson. If you don't mind seeing me bloody and in my underwear, there are plenty of clips from reality shows to look at.
Don't mind if I do.
And look up Leroy Patterson on Giphy. I've got tons of GIFs. I've got my personal GIF channel has 10.6 billion views. So there's a lot of cool stuff on there. So check that out. And hopefully I'll be on some more AEW in the future as well.
Yeah, fingers crossed for that, man.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, definitely.
Cross so hard they're breaking.
There you go.
So now it's time for Gaming History 101 with Professor Ryebread.
All right, thank you for coming, students. Please take your seats. Welcome back to Professor Ryebread's Gaming History 101. And in today's lesson, we'll talk about one of the most influential figures in the history of gaming. He started more than 20 companies, including the first big player in the home video game market and a restaurant with a rat for a mascot. Go figure. Of course, I'm talking about Nolan Bushnell. And we'll be covering his history up to about 1985 because we just don't have enough time to cover his adventures after that. But thought it would be a good time to focus on one of the biggest names in gaming history. So the question is, why cover him today? So for one, Bushnell helped shape an industry that is now worth hundreds of billions of dollars annually. He created a chain of restaurants that helped bring arcade gaming to the masses, especially younger folks, because at that time, the arcades were more seen for, we'll say, teenagers and ne'er-do-wells. And he also had the opportunity to work with some of the biggest companies that have ever existed, sadly not always taking that opportunity. So before I jump into this, have you guys heard of Nolan Bushnell before?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Never.
I assumed. So, last time we talked about Gunpei Yokoi, not as, I would say, famous in the North American industry as Nolan is. And I think Nolan's an interesting character, so he probably gets attention a little bit more for this
He made
one.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes, Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes.
And it's amazing how many opportunities he's had to work with some of these big companies and stuff that he's run. But if we take a look at it from the beginning, he was born in 1943 in Clearfield, Utah. And eventually he ended up attending Utah State University in 1961. He actually graduated with a bachelor's in electrical engineering. And he developed an affinity for games while working at a local amusement park called Lagoon Amusement Park as the manager of games. So if you think about it from back then, obviously, it wasn't an arcade where it was video games. It was something a little bit different known as an electromechanical game, which we'll get to in just a second. But while working at Lagoon, he saw kind of the impact that gaming had on the general public. He also maintenanced a lot of the games, so he learned how that they worked and became kind of familiar with the game industry. So he's like, all right, how do I get into this? How do I create something for myself and create my own business? So he ended up moving to California. His hope was to actually get a job at Disneyland, but at the time, Disney wasn't in the business of kind of hiring inexperienced college grads. So he ended up taking an electrical engineering job at a company called Ampex. There is where he met one of his business partners for the future, which was Ted Dabney. And it was at that time Bushnell became aware of something else that was coming out. He had an in at the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, where he got a chance to play one of the first video games ever created. Not the first, but one of the first, known as Space War. Have you guys ever heard of Space War before?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Vaguely.
So it's a game where you're basically a triangle in the middle of the screen. It's on like an oscilloscope, an old school oscilloscope.
Equilateral or isosceles?
Triangles, yes. It was, if I remember right, it's a equilateral triangle, but I could be wrong on that one.
Thank you.
Sorry. Now, are you able to visualize? Have I made it easier for you?
Yes, it's complete. Okay. Thank you.
And you're traversing, shooting either asteroids or other ships, and there's like a planet in the middle, and the planet has gravity, so you kind of have to move around it, and you might get trapped by the planet. Very interesting stuff. But he brought Danby in to check this out, and he was really excited about it. So the two of them formed a company called Syzygy. with the intention of producing coin-op versions of Space War. And they called that Computer Space. Great name, right? So, unfortunately, the game was essentially a commercial failure. It made $3 million, but it just wasn't enough to cover costs.
So funny that something makes $3 million and it's considered a failure.
Commercial failure, right? Exactly.
Right.
They also recognized that Syzygy was a name that was being used by 2 other companies in California, so they ended up changing the name to what we know as today as Atari.
Yay.
So they created this new company, and they brought on one extra employee, a gentleman by the name of Alan Ancor, as an engineer to start programming games. And it was at this time that Bushnell got a chance to attend a conference where they were demonstrating the Magnafox Odyssey. So for those who don't know, it was realistically the first video game system that you could play on your TV. Bushnell came home and said, hey, you know what? They've got this tennis game. Alan, I really want you to create a coin-op version of this game as a test project. He didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And he even lied to Alan and told him that it was for a project for General Electric. He had no plans of ever releasing this. But that essentially became Pong. And the interesting part was that Alan improved upon the game's mechanics. So rather than it just being one ball that traverses the space at the same speed, the more you would hit it, the more it would gain momentum, and therefore the ball would move faster. He also put a score counter on the screen itself. So the interesting thing about Pong is I think the reason that it did so well was probably because of the novelty of it, being able to manipulate something on a screen that wasn't obviously a mechanical thing. The other part of it was that it was simplistic, right? You didn't need to be sober to figure out all the rules when it comes to Pong. And it became so extremely popular that it was basically a mainstay of the company for a really long time. Did anyone grow up with like a Super Pong or a Sears Pong console?
A friend of mine had the Sears one.
Yeah.
I never owned one myself.
I bought one at a flea market, and the left paddle worked great. The right one, not so much. So of course,
that's for your friends when they come over.
Exactly. That's player 2, right?
I get this side.
Well, you're not very good at this. Oof.
Now, at the time, Bushnell hired a lot of really brilliant minds at Atari. So these 2 folks you may have heard of before, a gentleman by the name of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak worked at Atari.
Briefly.
I've heard of Steve Gutenberg, but no.
The important Steve.
Yeah, it's wild. That's where the whole idea behind Short Circuit came in. So the funny part is that actually Jobs and Wozniak approached Bushnell and were like, hey, we're starting this new computer company. We will give you a third of the ownership of this for $50,000. As I'm sure you're probably aware, they created the company Apple. And unfortunately, Bushnell said, I'm good. Thanks. And later he was actually quoted as saying, I was so smart, I said no. It's kind of fun to think about when I'm not crying.
F's in the chat.
Right.
Yep.
So eventually what ended up happening, though, is that the marketplace, so all these competitors started creating these Pong consoles. So to kind of stay above the competition, they went, okay, so now is the opportunity for us to develop a programmable home console. Essentially what they ended up doing is creating the Atari VCS. Now, they were not the first to market that had cartridges that were swappable. That was the Fairchild Channel F, but they were the biggest known name at the time. So that helped them when they finally got into that marketplace. And it was actually at this time, Bushnell was like, all right, things are going really well. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start my first, what he referred to as Pizza Time Theater in San Jose, California. Bushnell began to expand his Pizza Time theaters and change the name to Chuck E. Cheese, which I've got a lot of really great memories of Chuck E. Cheese as a kid. Do you guys have any memories of going to Chuck E. Cheese?
Oh, big time.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I had most of my birthday parties there up through like 3rd grade.
I went there for prom.
Did you really? That's awesome.
Yeah, my date was not excited, but she liked the pizza and we had fun in the ball pit, so whatever.
There you go.
There's a Chuck E. Cheese in my area that we've been there a few times, and there's always been a fight there.
Awesome.
Always.
That's good pizza. I'd fight over it too.
There you go. So for those who aren't familiar with Chuck E. Cheese, at least, it's a arcade pizza parlor, right? That used animatronic animals to entertain children. So one of those, of course, being the titular Chuck E. Cheese, which is a rat, which I am not really sure where they thought that was going to be a great idea, but it worked.
I thought he was a mouse. I don't recall him being a rat.
Maybe he's a mouse, but nonetheless, he's a rodent. And that's probably
he never ratted on anyone.
Yeah.
There you go.
Those kids went missing, he didn't say a thing.
Now, throughout the years of working with Chuck E. Cheese, he got in contact with quite a few different companies and actually ended up creating quite a few of them as well. One of the ones that he ended up working with was a company called Cadabroscope, which was an early attempt at kind of computer-assisted animation. He eventually sold that company to Lucas, which became Pixar. So, interestingly enough, Bushnell had his fingers in Apple and Pixar before they were big.
Phrasing again.
I really hope to wash those hands afterward.
But nonetheless, if Nolan Bushnell tells you your idea is bad, go with it. Moving forward, as far as the history was concerned, like I said, we're not going to go past 1985, but Bushnell would be influential in a myriad of different tech and gaming related companies, kind of the decades to come. And interestingly enough, right now he's serving as the CEO for a company called Global Gaming Technologies Corp. But taking a look at through the past, I mean, the guy was influential in Atari, got a chance to really realize his dream, got kicked out of Disney, and that gave him the motivation to want to do his own thing, and ended up creating an industry that we all know and love today. So I guess to kind of wrap things up, the idea here is that first you don't succeed, try again. And buy Apple when you have the chance. That's going to be...
That's solid life advice.
Or say no to Apple.
Right. So again, thank you all for attending today's lesson. Just a reminder, if you do have any ideas for a story you'd like to hear on this segment of Gaming History 101, message us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com, and we might feature your suggestion.
So, okay, that's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of the Gamers Week podcast. Thank you for listening to episode 6 of Gamers Week podcast. And a big thank you to the Retro Game Club podcast for sponsoring this episode. Also, a huge thank you to Leroy Patterson for joining us today. Don't forget to check them out, as his links are in the show notes. If you want to connect with Gamers Week, follow us on Twitter.
That's an old different site.
If you want to connect with Gamers Week, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC. Email us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on Twitch at twitch.tv/GamersWeekPodcast, where we will probably be streaming one of the aforementioned wrestling games that we talked about today. You can also visit our merch store at the longest web address ever.
Say it.
Say it. gamers-week-podcast.creator-spring.com/biz.org.
No.
Or if you want to do it the easy way, follow the link in the show notes. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/gamersweek. Finally, since you made it all the way to the end of this episode, please leave us a rating and review to let us know how we did. We really do value your feedback. While you're there, consider subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice.
Subscribe or you got to deal with me.
There you go.
We're going to send Leroy to steal all your Sneak Kings if you don't
Every single one
subscribe.
of them. Even ones you don't have yet. I'll give you a copy and then steal it. Just to feel that pain.